Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Drapers Connects. My name is Graham Moran, and I am the Associate Editor of Drapers. Thank you all for joining us today. In partnership with Cegid, today we will be discussing how to elevate your retail operations, as well as strategies for empowering your store teams to deliver exceptional experience. So I'm very happy to welcome today's panel. I'm going to hand over to each of you. If you could introduce yourself and just start us off with a fact, let us know how many stores you have, give a bit of context. So Debbie, why don't we start with you?
So I'm Debbie Kitchen. I'm the Senior Retail Ops Manager at the White Company, and by the end of this year, we will have 71 stores.
Thank you very much. Ramon?
Yep, my name is Ramon Spios. I'm the Retail Director for Hackett London. Currently, we have 57 stores across Europe and the UK, along with a couple stores in Mexico.
Excellent. And Amy, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Cegid?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Amy Bastow. I'm the Managing Director and one of the founders of what was Store IQ. And Store IQ was acquired by Cegid last year and is now under its new name of Cegid Retail Store Excellence. So you'll have to forgive me if I forget and call it Store IQ sometimes. Store Excellence is it's a retail ops platform that helps retailers like Ramon and Debbie organize their tasks and comms and help their store teams deliver great experiences. And I don't have any stores myself, but we do look after tens of thousands of stores all over the world.
Thank you. To our live audience, if you are watching live, please do feel free to ask questions by the Q&A function, which I believe is at the bottom of the screen, and we'll do our best to answer them throughout and at the end. So, operational excellence is key to delivering consistent brand experience across all your retail stores, particularly in today's omnichannel world where consumers are more demanding than ever. It's a bit of a cliche, but store staff are your ambassadors. They are the face of your business in towns and cities across the country and in Hackett's case, across the world. They are the human touch of your business and your brand. So they have to be good, but how do you make them the best? That's what we're going to talk about today. So before we start, I thought we could set a bit of context. We are here talking about bricks and mortar stores, kind of traditional retail, when it seems a lot of the conversation in retail at the moment is about digital and online and e-commerce and personalization, etc. But stores are still super important. Interestingly, yesterday, Drapers launched our annual Gen Z and Millennials Consumer Research Report, which is a survey of 2,000 shoppers about their shopping preferences. And for the last 4 years, I believe, that survey said that these 2,000 shoppers preferred shopping online. But interestingly, this year, they said that bricks and mortar stores are now their favorite shopping channel, once again. And I think that's really interesting. And I thought maybe we could start there. Would you say that you, panel, have seen a return to stores? And what do shoppers want from stores today when online is so prevalent and you can almost get anything you want wherever you are, whenever you want? Ramon, why don't we start with you and your experiences?
Absolutely. We know digital is something that we needed to invest in for Hackett. We've launched our OMS platform, but we still see our strength is in our bricks and mortars. So post-pandemic, we saw a big influx of ceremonial people coming in for their suits, etc. We thought we were going to see that decline of the maybe office guy kind of going back into work from home, etc. But we actually ended up seeing reverse. We saw that it was all about the experiences in store, and they kind of, when our clients were coming in, we had to really make sure that we were engaging with that, whether it be offering water, tea, coffee, even gin and tonics in some of our stores. Our Regent Street location, we actually have a bar on the first floor, and we really wanted to really focus on the experience of any of the customers coming in.
Excellent. Debbie, what about you? Are your customers still loving your stores?
Absolutely. And I think the key thing with the White Company is we do such a wide range of products that we're very much about the touch, the smell, and people want to experience that. So whilst online is still huge for us, people want to come in and touch the fabrics of the bed linen that they're purchasing or smell the candles. And whilst we do a brilliant job of bringing it to life, there's nothing like walking into one of our stores and smelling the latest fragrance being pumped through our stores.
Definitely. I know from chatting to you all, and you'd expect with some of our job titles, we all love shops. So we're obviously going to say that. But as well as the positives, I know there are obviously challenges as well. Debbie, could you talk to us about any challenges that you're facing with stores at the moment?
Yeah, so I think probably one of the biggest ones that we're seeing is whilst trade has been great, is balancing the cost of all the costs that are going up. So the rise of all costs of energy, but also things like payroll, everything's costing us a lot of money. But the customers' expectations are higher than ever. So kind of any forgiveness that they had through the COVID kind of lockdowns, reopenings, etc., has kind of disappeared, and that expectation is as high as ever, and they still want that kind of seamless customer experience from us. They want our teams and expect our teams to have that full product knowledge of everything on the shop floor, but we don't necessarily have enough, necessarily have lots of members of staff on the shop floor to do that. So it's for us, it's about finding that balance between serving but also being really smart with our tasks and just working as efficiently as we possibly can.
Yeah. I wondered, has anyone had any challenges just when it comes to staffing in itself? Brexit and COVID, lots of people left the UK. Has that been a challenge for anyone, and particularly it's become a lot more competitive out there, I imagine?
Yeah, for Hackett, we saw that as we kind of had influx of the customers coming back into stores, bricks and mortars. We saw after Brexit, we did see some staff leaving, which made it hard because we needed to retrain is a big piece of it, because it's just not something you could just throw one of our suits on. We need these guys to be experts and know how to measure, tailor, etc. So we saw it very challenging, and we saw it very competitive. So we saw some of our competitors try to interact and engage. So we had to make sure that we're being competitive with pay, incentives, anything from just kind of getting them on the right path to maybe their career progression. So coming off of Hackett, we actually finished last year with our best financial year. So with that being said, how do we continue on that journey? So expansion was one thing that we found pretty tough, because we needed to staff all these 10 stores that we recently just opened for the past year. So it's also getting the staff in there, but then also just making sure we're retaining our key members.
Amy, you're nodding. I wondered if you obviously work with lots of different businesses. Could you tell us what kind of you're seeing out there?
I think what we're seeing is exactly as Ramon said, the experience is so important, and what Debbie said, people need to understand what they're buying. I think my husband spent a happy afternoon in the Hackett store on Savile Row, actually, Ramon, and I think he probably contributed to your best year ever. But he's got an amazing suit and he's really happy, and he's even got the little thing to go in his pockets, and he's just had a brilliant experience in a great shop. So I think that will make sense, and I think it's really hard to hold on to people working in stores. It's and it's just so important to make that experience of working for you in retail something that people want to do, so that they stay.
When we were preparing for this webinar, Amy, you told me about a concept that a retailer had told you about this shift from thinking of the customer experience to the associate experience. And I think that kind of ties into this, you need to make them want to work there as much as you want to make customers come through the door. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I think everyone talks about customer experience, right? And I've sat through 50 million PowerPoint presentations about customer experience, and there's there's all the slides that say, if you deliver a great experience, you'll drive conversion and ATV and loyalty and ultimately profitability, and it goes on and on. But customer experience in retail really depends on store associates and their experience. And actually, I did, I think it was at the RTS show earlier this year, a talk with Robert Newstead, who works for PVH. He's the European retail ops director, I think, for PVH. And he was talking about how they have really focused on the store associate experience, on the basis that if you don't get that right, then your customer experience is never going to work, because if your people aren't, effective, then they just won't be able to deliver. And I think they kind of took the view that if you think about a store team experience, many people have got they've just got more to do with less time. And they also don't have the best tools. Life's moved on in many people's lives, and they have great tools and great apps to manage, to buy train tickets or listen to music. But often, if you're working in a store, you're just working with really terrible systems. And one of the things he talked about as well, actually, was this idea of this and that tech. Is people have bought little bits and put them in here and there, and if you're in the store, you've then got, you're being asked to do more complicated stuff with less time and a kind of rag bag of like little bits of tech. So what they did, and which I think is a lot of people are doing now, just really focusing on simplifying things for store teams, making it kind of super clear and simple, consolidating things, so getting rid of the last 5 years of like bitty tech investment and just consolidating it. And then once you've done that, you can start to kind of cut through and reduce some of the noise and activity that's making life hard for people. So I think it's you can't deliver a great customer experience if you haven't got your teams kind of lined up and able to do it.
Definitely. I think I'm going to steal that concept.
Yeah.
It's not just about the customer experience, it's the associate experience. You kind of touched on what my next point was going to be around, one of the ways we're going to talk about how you can supercharge your store staff is through technology. And it seems that across the industry, different businesses are kind of at different stages of that journey, in store particularly. And some have, as you said, lots of little bits of tech. And, as something new comes on the market, maybe they'll invest in it, but then it kind of gets outdated quite quickly. Whereas others have very little and, rely on traditional text messages, WhatsApps, emails, etc. I wondered if the retailers on the panel could talk about where they were on that journey. I know Hackett, for example, were at one end of that spectrum. So Ramon, could you start us off, tell us about where you were and kind of what you realized was missing from how you were, running your stores?
Absolutely. So that was one thing where we went from kind of one end with not having much and not much in the digital kind of investment piece for, I would say, the past maybe 3-4 years. We knew that we had to start that journey with just digital and kind of getting up to date pretty much. So I know some of the things were Hackett, we're actually part of a group, AWWG, which has some other brands, Pepe Jeans, and also has Fasanabra, which we had a lot of just communications between not only just the different kind of stores or brands, but there's communications from the office to the store teams. And that's where we saw a lot of the kind of messaging getting lost in translation, because maybe it was only via email, which is kind of only one way. There was WhatsApp, there was phone calls, there was just text messages out there, etc. And we really needed to kind of streamline to make sure that the stores team knew what was happening as a group, as a brand, what are our directives, what are some of the maybe highlights, new campaigns, etc. So I think with the Store IQ, when we launched that, really helped kind of clear the communications piece. So staff teams felt more engaged with what was going on, not only from Hackett, but also as a group of AWWG, because there was some exciting new kind of investments. There's new store, even new stores was something where if you're opening up a new store in, say, Mexico or a new store in Spain, the people in the UK didn't really know about it or hear about it. So it was all, we were relying on word of mouth, or we're relying it on kind of channeling it down through our retail managers to really pass it down to stores. And this made it an easy way to make sure that everybody was looped in. But it also helped us with not making it a one-way comms. It allowed it to be two ways. So the stores teams were able to communicate back to the certain departments in the office. And that was super helpful.
Thank you, Ramon. Debbie, I believe the White Company did have some technology in place, but it wasn't necessarily working for you. Could you tell us about your experience and what it was that you realized you needed to kind of be more effective and efficient?
Yeah, so we started, it was about 6 years ago, we started looking at ways we could engage with our employees and the teams, and whether that was to do with rotoring and schedules, or whether that was sales, or whether that was more around communications. And we did kind of go down a journey of using some other technology to do some of that. But actually what we found was it was just a bit too complicated, and it just didn't quite work for us. But what we absolutely realized, and probably more through the pandemic than anything, was what was super important to us was having a way to engage and talk to our team. So we've kind of had two different projects on the go. So we had our comms engagement team on a journey to launch Workplace, which is one thing that we launched, and very quickly afterwards we launched Store IQ for the stores. But what we knew we needed was something that was really simple, something that could be, like Ramon says, streamlining comms. It could be two-way, so it isn't just about us pushing comms to them, but it's about them being able to communicate back with us and share things. So whether that's photos or just a conversation or tasks, etc. But also something that would give us visibility of what we actually are pushing out and sending, and how much we're sending out. Because I think we all kind of have this gut feel that you might be doing a really brilliant job of it, but actually when the statistics come in, you actually kind of, I mean, I certainly was, after our first sort of 6 months, kind of really shocked at just how much we pushed out, but also how much they shared back. I think in our first 6 months, we had over 12,500 photos were shared from our stores back to us, because they were so excited about sharing, and they were so proud of what they do in the stores. So that's been, you know, absolutely brilliant for us.
So I guess that's one of the things we talk about, is it's engaging the staff as well, you know, that as you said, they're proud of what they're doing and they can sort of relay that back to you. So really positive thing.
Absolutely.
Amy, before you launched Store IQ, which is now Cegid, Retail Store Excellence, you worked in retail, you were in stores yourself, so you have kind of first-hand experience of the challenge, all these sorts of challenges. For anyone that's listening and thinking, you know, what do we need? What's going to solve our problem? And also, obviously, we're talking about technology here. There's an investment piece there. What advice do you have in terms of, you know, taking that leap again?
I think take it now. I mean, I think my experience and what led to us starting Store IQ was I had a short and not terribly successful period of time running a store estate, but I've worked in retail for a long time, but mainly running web businesses, where obviously you can see everything, you've got all of the data, you control it, it's all beautiful, it's very easy to kind of manage your performance. And then when I got a job that involved running a store estate, I was a bit taken aback by how anyone was meant to make 100 stores kind of look and feel the same. I mean, obviously, I had no idea what I was doing because I'd come from the internet. I mean, Ramon and Debbie have much better idea than I did. But what really struck me was the total lack of ability to communicate clearly and to help stores that needed it, and to just bring all the threads together. And so my kind of experience kind of working with our founder to build Store IQ, and then seeing kind of first hand on the ground the transformative effect of that. Debbie talked about photos actually, and I because I was still working for the store estate when we piloted the beta version of Store IQ, and my top tip for anyone considering implementing photos is to look at them first before you put them on the wall in a trade meeting, because otherwise you get a lot of hassle with people going, oh my god, I thought it looked, you know, why does it look like that, sort it out. But of course you can't sort it out if you can't see it. And so I think the the experience we had of instantly saving time. I mean, such a lot of communications, if you don't have a decent platform, is around repetition and checking and have you seen and, could you just, all of that drops out. Everything becomes faster. So we found when I was working, it used to take about 2 weeks to sign off a new season launch in every store and kind of know that everything was perfect. And with Store IQ, we got that down to 48 hours. So it's a huge impact, and it's if you think about the increase in time that you're trading kind of perfectly set, and the impact that has on full price sell through, margin, all that kind of stuff. Just making everything easier and getting perfect faster has a huge effect. So back to your question, like when's the right time? The time is now. And I think the other thing is that everything else becomes easier. There's always a long list of things to do, right? In stores, there's a long list of things to fix and improve and roll out. But if you've got a clear communication channel, everything becomes easier and you're able to kind of go faster and do more. So the time is now.
Thank you, Amy. Someone's actually from the audience has already asked a question, and I thought it might be good to kind of cover that off now because it's on this point. Both Ramon and Debbie talked about, particularly Debbie, with those 12,000 pictures. There's a lot of, the question asks, are you worried about information overload? And how do you balance over and underload, I guess? If you're, Debbie, you mentioned about sending too much out or not enough out, how do you deal with that?
So I think it's really easy to send far too much, and that's the one thing that Store IQ was able to give us, like I said, was some visibility of just how much was going, the times of day they were going out, and the days of the week. So we've kind of set up as a team, and then out to the business and our business partners is some real guardrails of days of the week that we will comms, and times of the day that are our preferred times to comms. Obviously, there's always going to be something that's urgent and last minute. But making sure it's absolutely relevant. One of my responsibilities is sort of kind of guardrailing that kind of bigger workload for the stores. So we know nothing can go out to stores. And this is one of our sort of favourite things about Store IQ is nothing can be sent from our business partners without prior approval from our team. So what we don't get is, and what we used to see before Store IQ was lots of comms going out that we weren't aware of. Whereas this now gives us that awareness of what needs to happen. And actually it's got our business partners in some really good practices and habits as well. But also we are quite structured with some of those things. So 12,500 photos is a lot in a 6-month period, but we're quite structured in our season launches, and that's where that comes through for us. So we launch quite clear spring, summer, autumn, winter, and as part of that, we will set stores campaigns and ask them specifically to share certain photos. So we're kind of specific and say, we want to see your mannequins at the front of the store, or we want to see this display, or we want to see your cash desk or whatever. So we are quite measured in what we ask them to do at the same time.
Ramon, do you have anything to add?
Absolutely. That was one of the first things when we're developing Store IQ for Hackett and for Pepe Jeans was I want to make sure that it should be easier for the store team. It should build efficiencies. It should mean that stores teams management teams are spending more time on the shop floor, interacting with customers. The last thing I wanted was to then shift all comms and just have overload for it. So we actually, one of the things we set up was we have a team that manages the tool, and the visibility that the tool gives from the dashboard piece of how many tasks are going out, to what is our compliance, to audits, etc. We had to really make sure we streamlined it. So again, we didn't want to go into that overload piece, and finding the right balance, because again, it's about the tool's only as good as what we put on it or what we communicate through it. So the other aspect of it too is we needed to make sure that we put enough on there too. It was something that was new, not only for the store teams, but for the office team too. So we had to really make sure that they were engaged with it, they were using it in the most effective and efficient measure too. So to make it that both ways communication. And we've seen just efficiencies and less time with operations or emails and WhatsApp, etc. It really kind of actually gave the store teams more time to focus on what we needed, which is the customers.
Thank you. We talked a bit about communication, but another key thing is task management and you know, to efficiently running stores. Debbie, what do you think is important when it comes to task management, and how do you kind of make it as efficient as possible, let's say?
So again, before we had Store IQ, we had lots of different ways of asking stores to do things from different tasks. So whether it was a health and safety compliance, daily check, weekly check, monthly check that they needed to do, but lots of it was just reliant on the stores remembering that it was a monthly check or whatever. So what this has allowed us to do, and was really important to us, was to get some structure and some consistency, and rather than everybody kind of, people remembering to do things at different times, what we've been able to do is really go through and kind of look at what's the rhythm and routine throughout a day, a week, a month, and the year, and schedule things in, which has been absolutely brilliant for us. We've seen some really fantastic results, particularly with anything compliance driven, because it is set up now as part of, it's their daily activity. They have to do their daily health and safety checklist. They can't complete it the next day retrospectively, which as many times as stores may say that doesn't happen. Of course it happens. I've store manager many years myself. Of course you do that sometimes, but you can't manipulate anything like that with them Store IQ, which is great. But what it also does is, for us, it tells us immediately on our dashboard who's done what and when. So we're not spending our time. So whilst it's about driving efficiency for the stores, it was about me driving efficiency for myself and my team, so that we weren't having to spend ages and ages chasing stores. Have you done this? Have you done that? It's all really visible, like Ramon says, on the dashboard, whether that's a task or a survey or a form or whatever it is. It's really easy to track, and it was about keeping it simple and driving some consistency across all stores.
Ramon, anything to add?
Absolutely, we saw the same thing, and it also allowed us, after the pandemic, when there was travel restrictions, it really helped our area cluster managers that were overseeing several sites across different markets, different countries. It really allowed them to kind of making sure that the standards are upheld. It's consistent out there. It helped them with the follow-ups or anything that needed to kind of doing or following up on, etc. So it really kind of helped them to really making sure that everything was getting just more than just ticked off, but it was getting completed properly. Yeah,
I guess it's kind of making everything uniform as well across 10s, 20, 30, 40 stores. It's consistency is key, which I guess we'll come on to actually. Amy, I saw you nodding a lot there. What do you think is most important when it comes to task management across a store estate?
I think there's a couple of things. I think it's about clarity, right? It's about just being really clear and making sure people have the information they need as well. So that's really important, making sure things are clear and people can find what they need. I think task management, quite often people who are new to task management will say things like, but I don't, my stores don't just tick things off, and it's not like there's more to running a store than just ticking a box and the rest of it. And of course there is. And I think one of the things that is important about retail task management. It's just very specific things that are done in retail, like uploading photographs, for example, and having a two-way flow of communication around those. So having some kind of segmentation and structure around the type of tasks that you're asking your stores to do, and making sure those are handled kind of in a way that works for the store teams is really important. But really, it's just about organising the communication, being clear about what's expected, and making sure people have everything they need to be able to do it. And you can see, both Debbie and Ramon have talked about the dashboards and the visibility you get, but then the equally important thing of that was the kind of result of that, is that you can help where you need to. And that's where you really make a difference, if you can kind of fix faster and just make everything perfect quicker.
Thank you, Amy. Audience watching live, don't forget to ask your questions if you have anything you'd like to know from our panel. I will get to them either throughout or at the end. Something that we talked a lot about these photographs and the images, and I think what that relates to is the kind of visual side of stores, visual merchandising, windows, displays, that kind of thing. And it's what we talked about as kind of brand consistency across different stores. And I'm sure getting one store right is not easy, but keeping 10, 20, 100 stores consistent across the country or even across the world is a big challenge. But I know just from my own experience that both the retailers on the panel do this very well. You know, a lot of the White Company stores are exactly the same, and I think that must be very hard to achieve. What advice do you have, Debbie, on kind of making the stores as consistent as possible?
So, I mean, firstly, we're super lucky that we've got a really brilliant visual team who just do the best job. Hopefully, everyone agrees who's on the call. That we do have really beautiful stores. But again, I think, and that was one of the wins for us, was anything that we've looked at in the past, we've never really been able to bring the visual side of the business really to life in the way perhaps that we've been able to through Store IQ. So the team we've always done what we call a visual focus, which tells the stores through all of the visual teams through the actions for the week and how things need to look. But what we've been able to layer in as well is more. We have a video channel, so we host lots of different videos, whether that is more operational, but we also host videos on there about how to make a bed and how to dress a bed, or how to dress a table, or dress a Christmas tree. So it's not just about a photo or an action or a task. So we're able to bring it to life quite well through the platform. And then, like I say, with the campaigns going backwards and forwards, the stores then can share their best practice or their photos, but then the visual teams then can also share back out the best practice from those photos. So if they've seen something that looks really brilliant, and it might be where a store's put their own twist on something, where they might not have in stock what had been intended to go on the table, they might try something else, and the visual teams can then share that back out with best practice to all the stores, which has been absolutely brilliant. But also it kind of maybe felt like a small part of the platform at the beginning, but has been so important to us, is that the platform feels like us, it's ours. So everything from the wording, the tone of voice, the photography, the fonts that we use on the platform, it's the White Company through and through. So it's not something that looks completely alien and completely different to the stores. It's in the same language.
Do you think that really helps with engagement from the people using it from that point of view?
Definitely. I think when you can log into a platform and see the beautiful photography or things that feel familiar to them, it makes such a difference. There's nothing worse than, if you log into if you went shopping on your favorite website and it was plain versus, having their photos, you're going to be more engaged and excited by the photography and seeing what you're used to from that brand, rather than just blank screen with with perhaps your logo on it. So it made, like I say, it felt like it might be a small thing, but actually it's become something that's really important to us, and something that updating things like our homepage is now as important as the content we put on there. We have a whole kind of campaign of things we want to put on there, frequency of changing photography and what we're talking about on there, depending on the season or what's happening at that time.
Excellent. And we talked about brand consistency in terms of visuals and what stores look like, but I was thinking that it's also, brand consistency also counts when it comes to the message of the store, and what, particularly with Hackett, it's a heritage brand, it's got a long history, and your products are very special fabrics and construction, tailoring, it's there's a lot of knowledge needed there. And we spoke about earlier, consumers getting more and more demanding. So I guess what I'm getting at is there also an element of brand consistency when it comes to knowledge and informing your staff? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a tool that really allowed us, going back to kind of one of Debbie's points in the last minute, was it really made it our DNA. The tool really felt like it was a Hackett tool, and it provided not only just the imagery or product videos, etc., but it really kind of fit the DNA. And that was probably one of the trickier things, Amy might say, as opening or launching this tool as a group. We have Pepe jeans. We wanted it to look, feel like it's Pepe jeans, and to that DNA, Façonnable, which is a French Riviera brand. How do we make it look, feel like Faso, and then Hackett? How do we make sure we're going back to how does it look, feel for that English suiting gentleman heritage brand, etc. So the tool really did that, and with each of the different channels, when a Hackett store logs into their link, they'll see the Hackett images. And it really allowed us to making sure that they were updated with any brand campaigns, what our brand ambassadors are doing, what are some of the things that we're posting on social media, what are some of our directives. It really kind of got our store teams to really know what is going on from the different aspects, more of a 360 approach for it. And then even the toughest thing is these associates, they need to be able to sell a suit that might be £1,000. And that's not an easy task when a customer or client could potentially go somewhere else and buy a suit that might be half the price. So we really had to educate our store teams, and this tool allowed us to do that, whether it's talk about product videos, whether it having our head of tailoring or our vice president of design really talk about what mills that these garments are made at, what's the material or fabrics that it's getting sourced from. So really kind of really highlight of why it's a certain price point, or why you're buying this luxurious garment out there. And we really needed to showcase that, because it's so hard as we're a global brand to get that message to everybody. So it really helped us as a training tool too, for our store teams to really know kind of the product piece of it. And that's been super helpful.
This might be a slightly cheeky question, but it's all well and good having the information, but how do you ensure that teams engage with it and and use it and enjoy using it?
Absolutely. There's the compliance piece, there's the follow-ups, there's the piece where when your area manager or cluster manager goes to that stores, they have maybe their checklist or their task, etc. But we also need to make sure that it's more than just kind of driving that tool down. You really kind of are able to see who's engaging with the tool. And I think the visibility from the dashboard really lets you to do and say, instead of just that tick box, really following it up with, okay, let's do a questionnaire, or let's do a little gamification on product knowledge. And we do little pieces like that to really boost the engagement, to use the tool, but also use it to incentivize too. And then the associates are only going to benefit from it, whether it be from maybe making that sale in store, from that extra commission. So it's really in their best interest to do it. But again, we want it to be the most kind of fluid, easiest way, most intuitive way to do it.
Debbie, it sounds like your teams are very engaged with this change. How have they responded?
I mean, better than I thought they possibly would to begin with. And we've gone through a lot of change with technology, not just through Store IQ, but we've recently changed our till system, we've changed our back office system, and we've been through a lot. And the stores have had to, really respond and change a lot, whilst also going through all the pandemic and all of those changes. So when we said we'd launch Store IQ, I kind of didn't do it with one eye closed, but kind of we went in and it was easy to sell to them. It was a really easy thing. But the engagement from day one was just absolutely outstanding. And you can see it from doing simple things like the compliance checklists, so you can see that they were actually doing it. But we ran surveys to see how they felt about it, what we could do better. We still do that, so we will still pick up Store IQ and comms and task management up as part of our peak lessons learned. We go into into the depths of it and look at what we can do and see how we can improve it. But I think, yeah, I think it was just having it all in one place and somewhere really simple for them to look, rather than having to run off the shop floor and go and log into a computer or check a phone or do this. It's really simple. It's on their iPad, it's in front of them, and it's just made their lives easy. And I think as soon as you make their lives easy, you've got their attention. And the fact that it is so engaging and there's such great content on there, they just love.
Yeah, that's goes very nicely into my next point actually, which was around when we've been talking ahead of this webinar, talking about elevating retail operations, etc. We kept coming back to this idea of allowing them to store staff to do their job as best as they can, and this kind of phrase of empowering store staff. So I wondered if I could ask the panel, what tips or advice do you have to do that, to kind of empower your staff to do the best that they can? Amy, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about giving people clarity. I keep saying it, but it's about giving people clarity about what's expected and giving people the information so it's easy for them to do what they're being asked to do. Because generally, most people at work want to do a good job. And it's frustrating and downheartening if you're getting in trouble with your area manager who's asking you why you haven't done something and you didn't know you were meant to, or you're being told off for not putting the right jacket on the mannequin, but actually you missed the email that told you that the stock had been swapped out, that kind of thing. So, really just about giving people everything they need. I think both Debbie and Ramon actually picked up on just making it look nice and making it mobile. And I think because one of the things, going back to the beginning of Store IQ, one of the things that really made it work was the advent of Wi-Fi in stores and mobile. And suddenly people weren't then stuck logging onto a PC in the back office. So, creating something that looks and feels engaging, looks like the brand, is just nice to use, and it's searchable. You can have it in your pockets. The rest of that is, makes a really big difference. And I think it is just about making something that's easy to use, makes your life easier, and makes you more likely to do a better job. And then everyone's happy.
Debbie, I know you told me a story about how the business thinks of each stores as their own individual business. So how are you kind of empowering your teams to kind of think in that way?
So I think the way we want to use Store IQ to drive consistency. Like I said, I've said it so many times, but it's so true. We want consistency and we need it. We need compliance. We want it to be simple for them. And the way we see it is that we're providing them a really good framework whereby they can trade safely, they can trade consistently, they can trade securely, and be safe in their teams. But at the same time, it's their it's their own business to run, and they use the platform to do things. So they set themselves tasks, and they create their own things in there to do, and their own actions, which I know rather than having things written down in diaries, they use the platform in that way. We're on a big sustainability kick at the moment, and there's so many things coming through where they're just coming up with all these different ideas and ways of using Store IQ or kind of moving things away. And so it's just giving them the freedom to do that. And we have through our workplace platform, we have a bright ideas sort of kind of part on their group, and they're brilliant at sharing their ideas on there as well. So what we do is we try to sort of take their ideas and then we put them into action as well, which again sort of just makes them feel really special, and that they're playing a part in it. It's not just us telling them what to do, it's them giving us the ideas and how we can build on it, which they love, and we want them to have their own voice. I mean, they do have their own voices and they do such a brilliant job of it. And like I say, we're just there to provide the framework to make sure it's safe and secure for them and compliant.
Ramon, what about you? I was thinking just then that it might, does it get tricky when you're going across countries and time zones, and how are you empowering your staff to do the best they can?
Yeah, absolutely. The main reason we wanted this tool was to simplify and just communicate and have it be a two-way and have those comms being fluid between the office and source teams. But it really kind of helped us with consistency, but then also just not even the communication from our office to the source teams, but even within the stores. Debbie, you mentioned it about like, I used to go into stores and I would see Post-it notes everywhere. And I'd be like, why are we doing this? It's something where it's like, if that falls out, we're not going to be able to communicate from that closing manager to maybe the next day, the opening manager. So it really allowed us to really kind of just not only communication from office to stores, but within the stores teams. And we even have some different departments within the stores. We have tailors that we have alteration tailors in some of our stores. And it's even the communication of, where is that garment that was maybe altered? When is that going to get completed? The customer is going to come in tomorrow at this time. It really allowed that kind of visibility and that kind of communication within the stores and the different teams, and that's helped us dramatically. And one of the things was initially it was always tough, like, oh, we're launching something else. That we said we launched all these different tools. We launched an OMS platform at a similar time. We had this, and it was just kind of the good thing about it was we were able to get the stores teams engaged with it very quick because it was more effective. It was more efficient. It was intuitive. It was easier to rely on. So yeah, it did take some training from not only the source teams to use it, but it was mainly the office teams to kind of build the comms there. But the engagement piece we saw very quickly, which is something it's just hard to do when you're launching a digital tool or something new, but we saw that actually happen very, very quickly.
Great. That kind of leads into, we're going to shift to some audience questions now, to one of the questions, which they've asked. Obviously, we've talked about technology and that obviously involves investment. And you mentioned lots of things, but the last point there was around the engagement, and that's obviously a benefit, a positive. Someone has asked, how are you tracking how successful these things are? You know, is there any ROI kind of signifiers that you use or anything like that? Anyone want to take that question?
For aspect, we had our partner from Store IQ really partner up with just not only the development, but after when the tool's running. And because they're the experts, they set it up for other brands. This was something new for us. So my biggest questions all the time was, is it working? Is the communications there? Where's the visibility? And the amazing thing with it was we saw that engagement, like what I said earlier, very quickly. But again, some of the things we had to learn from it too is it's only as good as what we put on it. So we did have to kind of go and invest a little bit more on managing the tool, but managing and training not only the store team, but the office members. So we have an onboarding piece where if it's anybody who's new in a department that's going to be using this tool, we make sure we get training for the tool, how to effectively use it, etc. So that was one of the things that it really kind of helped from day one, that kind of streamlining communications. And for return on investment, I mean, that was the one thing where we saw increased in engagement. We saw retention on it, but then we were also able to really see brand consistency, which we didn't really have that before, which was key. And we saw that return on investment kind of happen fairly quickly.
Anyone got anything else to add on that?
No, sorry, Amy.
Go for it, Kelly.
I was going to say just very, very similar thing, something very similar to Ramon. I think, we've seen, the engagement go, really increased in stores. We use Culture Amp, and we've used other kind of measurements of engagement and things like comms and task management always kind of comes through, and it's great to get that feedback. And if it's not been what we've wanted, what we perhaps would have expected, we would get, we can use it to build and move things forward. we have our management, the management team at Cegid will help us and give us that sort of deep dive into the data as well. So where, like I say, where I think you can have this gut feel that you think you're doing a really brilliant job of what you're sending out, but actually the numbers and statistics might tell you otherwise. And that was one of the things that we saw very early on, was that we didn't want to send comms to stores on a Friday, and we thought we were brilliant at doing that. We were like, yeah, well, great, we've got this. And actually, as soon as we saw the first round of statistics, we were like, crikey, there's 15% going out on a Friday. What is it? And we were able to unpick that, which in turn sort of really helped with the engagement in the stores. So it's not, there's not necessarily lots of things that we can sort of link back to our ROI, but actually, just that engagement with the teams is huge and invaluable.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, we obviously help people make the business case and kind of think about how to make the ROI kind of all the time. So my day job, and I think everything that you guys have talked about is exactly right. And it can be hard to quantify, but we do quite a lot of work asking people questions and asking them to quantify how much time they're saving is the main one. And I think, and sometimes we get unprompted feedback from people. So we have a customer that went live on Store IQ last year who sent me an email this week saying that they reckon they'd save 25% of their field team's time just by being able to just tidy things up, make it neater and clearer. And that's obviously a really big number, but for your field teams, that's a huge increase in productivity. And saving time, it depends about it's all very well saving time, but most store estates are run very tightly anyway, so you're not going to save any payroll. It's about what you do with the time that you save. And then, of course, quite often you can take out quite a lot of paper. We've had some people who save like £80,000 a year of paper. You can make your allocations of marketing collateral a bit sharper into stores, and you can usually save some money there. So while the big benefits are around making life easier for store teams, engagement, brand consistency, ultimately driving sales, but you can certainly see some really clear and quantifiable benefits around time savings and cost too.
That was one thing we saw. I was asking my IT, I was like, okay, can we double check and see what is the comms from email, which was a big kind of way we used to always do. And it was like, how many emails are going back and forth between stores and office? And when we launched, what is the savings now? And again, from the office team, we saw, man, they would get these email chains back and forth, et cetera. And it really kind of cut down. I think we had about 40% decrease in our emails than we did. And it was all via the help with this tool.
I'm not sure what the panel will think of this question, but I'm going to ask it because I'm quite interested in it. But if no one has an answer, don't worry. Someone has asked, how does the panel see the use of customer data being leveraged by staff in store to deliver better shopping experiences? It's slightly off topic, but I think it's quite interesting. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Well, this one, I mean, we use it for customer data. It's not like a CRM tool that we use. It's all just office to stores teams to compliance to gathering photos. But yeah, we don't use it for any kind of customer sharing or data. We'll send like a loyalty kind of, here's our next steps with loyalty, or here's where we're going, or here's our kind of next gifted purchase we're going to be sending, but nothing specific with customer data. Yeah,
I just thought it might be interesting. Do you guys have any plans to leverage that more, in the future? Yeah, it's a question from the audience. There's been a couple of questions around as we're heading into peak. Obviously, it's going to be busy Q4 period. Does anyone have any tips or advice? What are you focusing on as we go into this year's peak?
Yeah, so I mean, we've kind of kickstart our campaign for peak kind of kickstarts really, really early, because we are so sort of peak Christmas gifting orientated. So we kind of start our countdown really kind of starts in July for stores. So we use the month of August as a bit of a time to get ready, get prepared for peak. So we have we have an annual, and each year it kind of changes slightly, but we kind of give the stores a really robust checklist to go around different parts of the store just to make sure that they're kind of really ready for what's coming, because it's not just necessarily about trade, but the shift in our stock levels going into store is just absolutely phenomenal. So it's about clearing out your stock rooms, making sure that your racking and everything is optimized, and that if you've got any old furniture or any old product and transfers ready to go, that you kind of clear out. We also kind of we take the opportunities to use the checklists to give us information about any technology or any hardware or anything that may not be working as efficiently as it might need to going into peak. I mean, ideally, hopefully people are telling us all year round, but again, it's that kind of pre-peak check-in. We use it to kind of let stores know about all of the cascades and the information that's coming. But what we'll then do is host a homepage within a homepage, if you like. So that really helps, so we can consolidate all of the information into kind of one really easy place. So at kind of a click of a button through the homepage, the stores will be able to see whose work, what the weekend rotas of, head office support and business partner support looks like, or whether there's documentations in there that might remind them about last delivery dates and all of those types of things. So again, what we try to do is just set everything up as much as possible, set any recurring tasks for them, and then hopefully, touch wood, everything goes to plan and you can kind of take a step away and allow them to trade, and they've got what they need when they need it.
Yeah, for Hackett, it lets us be just very kind of compliant, but also, I mean, you said it like surveys, like one of the biggest thing is you said the IT. It's like go through and see kind of what devices are working, what's not working, et cetera. So it's very easy to get that survey to see kind of what stores have something that's broken or might need something. It lets us, the VM team, the visual merchandising team, say, all right, look out for this POS that's coming. Here's maybe some window vinyls, or here's some Christmas trees, here's your deliveries, etc. So it lets them just to kind of, instead of just do it individually, it just kind of gets it out there. It's easy to get a survey. Also lets us just to prep and do inventories of, do we have enough packaging? Do we have enough boxes? Do we have enough tissue paper? All that just a lot of those little things, it lets it just really easily streamline it.
Amy, any last bits
Oh
of
my
advice?
goodness. Yeah, I did peak planning for 15 years. I think that was one of my biggest reasons for like coming to work in a software company. But yeah, I mean, it's just getting everything lined up to scale up. My always top tip is always to book your carrier capacity for your online business in the last couple of weeks, because I've known a few businesses that didn't get it booked, and you can't deliver your parcels if you don't have any elves or carriers. But yeah, it's about getting everything organized, making a list, doing the things on the list.
Excellent. Sadly, that's all we have time for today. So thank you to our audience for joining us live. Thank you to Amy, to Debbie, and to Ramon, and thank you to Cegid. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you.